Hey everybody, it's Ron, and today I'm going to be reviewing Dune. The movie is finally here. I feel like we've all been waiting forever for this thing to come out, and by now I'm sure everyone has seen it, so I'll start off real quick by saying that I don't like the way it was released so early in other countries. It might have been fine if it was just like a week or so, but the reviews kept pouring out weeks and weeks ago, and it kind of makes this like old news to review now, which kind of sucks, but I've been waiting to review this thing for a long time, so stick around if you want to hear my take on it. I'll start with the opening of the movie. I did see the first 10 minutes at that special IMAX event a couple months ago, and now that I've had time to reflect seeing that part twice, I really love the way it sets up the world in a quick way. The world building could get really overwhelming, but they give the audience little nuggets one at a time to explain the world, and it works really well. I think part of the problem when you're really excited about a movie is you look for every detail you can find online years before it comes out. And when you find out some information about the movie that excites you, it could be changed by the time it gets released. And one thing I found out listening to Robert Meyer Burnett's channel, check out his channel by the way if you haven't, but yeah, he read the script a couple years ago, and the original draft opened up with Duncan Idaho traveling to Arrakis and meeting up with the Fremen, and I was so excited to see that because it would have actually shown what is only mentioned in the book, and it would have fleshed out Duncan a little more, but instead we get an opening with Zendaya as Chani explaining what's happening to the Fremen on Arrakis, and I totally understand why they changed it for a couple reasons. Zendaya has a huge following, and her character doesn't have much to do because this is only the first half of the book, so they wanted to give her a little more screen time, but it's not used in a meaningless way. She does give the normal movie-going audience all the info they need to set up this story, and it works, even though I selfishly wanted to see Duncan doing cool things on Arrakis. So, like I said in my early reaction to the footage, I was really surprised at how good the pacing was in this movie because Denis' last movie, Blade Runner 2049, was very atmospheric and slow-moving, so it was a nice surprise, and I also couldn't believe that there was a little humor peppered in the beginning as well. So I'll start off with all the good, and then I'll get into what I thought maybe felt a little off to me. First of all, the cast is amazing. I thought everyone for the most part was perfect for their roles. I especially liked Oscar Isaac as Duke Leto. He embodied that character for me. He was a good father and a good leader, and he really sold it. I was happy to see that he at least got some cool moments in the film before he eventually gets betrayed, and they really respected that character, so that made me happy. I also liked Rebecca Ferguson as Lady Jessica. I think she was also perfect for the role. I've said it before, but she looks exactly like what I pictured for Jessica. It's really weird, and the use of the voice was really trippy and cool, but I didn't expect her to cry so much in this movie. I feel like she was always crying. That really surprised me because although Paul starts to really freak her out as the book goes on, I pictured Jessica being a little, I don't know, stronger than that. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but I love the other core characters as well, like Gurney, Duncan, and Thufir. And on the villain side of things, I thought the Baron and Piter were also really creepy and great. I just wish they were in the film a little longer, but I already knew that they would have minimal amount of screen time in this part. Stellan Skarsgård was great though. His presence as the Baron is really intimidating, and that's exactly what I wanted out of the character. I wanted him to be really scary, and they nailed it. So I can't wait to see more of him if they make a second part. Timothée Chalamet as Paul was pretty solid. He had the hard task of holding this whole movie together, and he really nailed Paul's attitude before he becomes Muad'Dib. So I was really happy with his performance overall, and once again, his appearance is dead on with how I pictured Paul in the books. The attention to detail in this movie is amazing. The glow globes looked really great. I couldn't believe they added a picture of Duke Paulus, who's Duke Leto's father, that gets fleshed out more in the House Atreides prequel. And there's the imagery of the bull that killed him. I was really happy to see that stuff included. It really gives this world a rich history, and they even have some dialogue between Paul and Leto about his father and what happened to him in the bullfight. So as a fan, I really appreciated that stuff. Oh, and Gurney's scar, which Josh Brolin himself said was given to him by Raban, so it's really awesome that his backstory also fits with the prequel books. I think some of my nitpicks start with the secondary characters, like Dr. Yui, for example. I guess from reading the book, there's more time to set up his arc and why he's doing what he's doing, but in this, it comes kind of out of nowhere. Maybe that was done on purpose to surprise the regular movie-going audience, so I wonder how that part of the film worked for someone who isn't familiar with the book. It's kind of weird because for a movie that's going to be split into 2 parts to be more truthful to the book, it still kind of felt rushed when it came to those types, those sections of the book. It's hard to criticize because on one hand, every choice they make for the movie works for the pacing and doesn't bloat it. But as a fan of the book, I felt like some things didn't get enough attention. For example, I get why they didn't add Fade or the Emperor. I still felt there should have been something in there with them to set up the larger picture of the story. But again, this is why it's always going to be tough for a fan of the book to watch an adaptation with all these characters in your head already. But I look forward to seeing them in part 2. Okay, so let's talk about the design of this film. I really love the ornithopters. I thought they looked great, and I also really liked the quick shots of Giedi Prime and the beginning scenes on Caladan. I like the Atreides ship designs coming out of the water. I thought it was a really nice touch. Seeing the Sardaukar on Seleucus Secundus was also epic, but one complaint I have is the look of the Sardaukar soldiers themselves. I liked the scene with Piter making sure everything was going according to plan, but I felt like their costume was a little too plain. Am I nitpicking this a little too much? Yeah, so I don't know. It's not a big deal. The Guild Highliners also looked so amazing, especially in IMAX. The scale is amazing. I appreciated that the art directors took time to make these ships look different from anything we usually see in these types of movies. I'm not totally against them taking creative liberties, and I liked little touches that were added that I never would have thought of. For example, when the Atreides arrive on the planet Arrakis, I was caught off guard, but I also dug that they had a dude come out and start playing a bagpipe as kind of like a ceremonial thing. There are really interesting little things like that in this movie. The fighting scenes and the choreography I thought were very well done. I especially enjoyed the opening training scene with Paul and Gurney, and the use of the shields in this movie worked great. The sound design was on point for that as well. It was also nice to see Gurney and Duncan Idaho fighting Sardaukar soldiers during the Battle of Arrakeen because, like I've said, it's only described briefly in the book, and that's a cool advantage the movie has to really explore that stuff and make it even more exciting. I tried not to listen to other people's reviews because I want to make my own points, but I did hear a lot of people don't really like how it ends abruptly, but I don't really think it did. It just leaves the door open to continue, the same as Lord of the Rings did. That being said, we definitely need a part 2 because that can't be the definitive ending, but it didn't really feel weird to me. The only thing I wasn't sure of, and I like the visual of it, but I felt like they shouldn't have shown us Fremen riding a worm just yet, because I feel like they should have left that for the sequel and kept that part a bit of a surprise for the regular movie-going audience. I felt that way a little bit with Paul's visions as well. As cool as it was to see him fighting with his Fremen army and becoming a leader, I could have waited for the sequel to see that come about naturally. And I know he had visions in the book, but I don't know, maybe they could have made them a little more mysterious to give us something to look forward to seeing in the next one without showing it full on. The score works really well, and I like that it's not your traditional Hans Zimmer score. He really experimented a lot here, and I think something like Dune lends itself to that kind of music. I don't think it needed to be like a John Williams score with a bunch of memorable melodies, even though I love that stuff. I just think Dune is more about setting a mood, and I think he achieved that. I do have to say, though, I've listened to both the Dune official soundtrack and the Dune sketchbook, and I do like the Dune sketchbook a little bit better. For those who don't know, he released 2 different soundtracks, and the sketchbook is kind of like all his early ideas and experiments for the movie. So to me, it's better to listen to that because they're crafted tracks, whereas the soundtrack syncs up with the movie and works better along with it rather than listening to it by yourself in a car or something. I'm going all over the place because I have a lot of thoughts, but what else? Javier Bardem as Stilgar is another bit of perfect casting. Even though he was only in it for a little bit, he was still really awesome. I'm really impressed with how Denis Villeneuve took all of this pretty complex stuff and compressed it into a blockbuster epic without degrading the source material. I will say that the visions got to be a little too much. I could have done without a couple of them towards the end when they meet the Fremen, but it wasn't too bad. I just think it bogged down the flow of the movie a little bit. So yeah, I'm really happy with how this turned out. It was definitely worth the wait. It looked amazing on IMAX. And now I'm going to just play it a bunch of times on HBO Max because I want this movie to do well, and I want them to at least finish the first book, but I'd also love to see Dune Messiah and even Children of Dune adapted, but we'll have to see. Thanks so much for watching and supporting this channel, and if you like this type of content and you're new here, please like and subscribe because it helps me out a lot. Thanks for watching. Hey everyone, it's Ron here with a quick announcement. When I started this channel, I was reading and reviewing the Dune books and other sci-fi related material, and most of you might not know that I'm also a musician. So when I was reading these sci-fi books, I started to get inspired and decided to make my own soundtrack to use for my videos, and now I'm excited to tell you all about the first volume in the Ron Reviews original soundtrack collection. This album includes the first 17 tracks featured on my channel, and it's available now exclusively on Bandcamp. Be sure to check the description of this video for the link to the album. Thanks so much for the support so far. I know I'm just starting out, but I hope you're having as much fun as I am. So check out the original soundtrack Volume 1 on Bandcamp. This music is great if you want something moody and atmospheric to listen to while you're reading some science fiction. I think you're going to love it. Thanks.